Before we get started, we just want to thank Old Republic Surety for sponsoring this episode of Let's Get Surety, as well as NASBP virtual seminars. For more information on Old Republic Surety, visit www.orsurety.com. Now on to our show.
You're listening to Let's Get Surety. Let me hear your bonding talk with Kat Shamapande.
Hey everyone, it's Kat Shamapande. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of Let's Get Surety. Got with me today my co-host, Mark McCallum, CEO of NASBP. Hey Mark, thanks for being on.
Kat, always great to be back. And I know we're talking about something that's important to every association.
We are, advocacy.
Really important to ours. We're in an industry that was legislated in, so people need to hear why it's so important.
That's right. If we were legislated in, we don't want to be legislated out. And that's what these guys are all working really hard on, our guests today.
Yep.
We've got Larry LeClair. He's our very own Director of Government Relations at NASBP. Hey, Larry, thanks for being on.
Hey, Kat. Thanks for having me again. We got a great subject we want to talk about, and let's get started.
We've also got with us Alan Starks. He's Senior Vice President of Surety at Christensen Group Insurance, and he's also the Chair of the Government Relations Committee for NASBP. Hey, Alan.
Hey, Kat. Thanks for having us today. Looking forward to this.
It's good to have you back again. And we've also got our Vice Chair for the Government Relations Committee, Matt Cocco. He's a Surety Risk Advisor and Partner at Smith Brothers Insurance. Thanks for being on, Matt.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Kat. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited about talking about the legislative fly-in, and it's a great event, and hopefully more people attend.
Well, before we dive in and go all advocacy all the time, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Alan, about your company?
Yeah, as you said earlier, I run the bond business at the Christensen Group Insurance. I've been doing bonds for 23 years now. So we have 20 offices around the country now for Christensen Group and about 250 employees. So that's my background from that side of it.
Awesome. So what really interested you in advocacy? What pulled you over to be the Chair of Government Relations? Something
I got into maybe 10 years ago. I started getting on the Government Relations Committee, and just something I found enjoyable to be interested in. And always kind of been, as I got older in life, more interested in the federal politics and different things like that. So it kind of drew me into it. And now that I've dove into it, it's been real fun to get to know kind of the ins and outs of how things work up on Capitol Hill.
That's awesome. Matt, how about you? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about Smith Brothers Insurance?
Sure. So I'm entering my 20th year in the surety industry, which is hard to believe, but here we are 20 years later.
It doesn't feel like 20.
It doesn't feel like 20. So I'm a partner with Smith Brothers Insurance. We're out of Glastonbury, Connecticut. We're about 250 employees at multiple states. Our headquarters are in Connecticut, but we have offices in New York, Mass, and New Jersey. Like I said, I'm a partner in their surety division. And my interest in government relations and the legislative fly-in, in my previous life, when I worked at Traveler Surety, I was actually involved in a couple pieces of legislation that dealt with surety, and really found it interesting. And one thing led to another. At my first NASBP meeting, I sat in on the Government Relations Committee meeting, and here I am, Vice Chair. They lured me in, and they won't let me out.
You knew that's where you wanted to be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thanks for taking on that mantle, that leadership role.
Yeah.
Seriously, very important. Larry, there's a lot of prongs to advocacy, right? So I'm kind of curious, where do you see a legislative fly-in fitting into an overall advocacy effort? Why is it important?
Well, I think it's important because certainly we have legislative vehicles on Capitol Hill right now. We've got a couple bills that we're pursuing. And certainly either you or myself go to Capitol Hill, and we'll talk about those issues. We'll talk about legislation for sure. But it really brings back the local constituent. I can't impress upon people. The most important thing is you're the voting constituent of that office, and that is important. It's just not me as the federal lobbyist or Mark as the CEO of NASBP going to Capitol Hill. It's the importance of the local voter, the local constituent, and what it means to that office. So when Alan goes in and he talks to his member of Congress from Minnesota, the same with Matt, they're going to listen to them. They listen to me sometimes, but they're going to listen to the voter. Every vote counts, and that's what's important about advocacy and the fly-in.
It's like a real-world connection to voters who also probably influence other voters in their district, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And certainly when we go on Capitol Hill, we talk about the importance of the product, but they want to hear from the constituent. And I can't impress upon that important point enough.
it's funny, Larry, you say that. I've been in multiple meetings with you and other, lobbyists that they won't even look, once they understand that you're the constituent, they won't even look over at Larry or Julie's side of the table once they understand and realize that you're the true constituent. It was a couple meetings that really come to mind that Larry disappeared real quick out of the conversation when they realized that one of the people was from, for me, Minnesota. And they didn't realize until a couple minutes in that was it. And then all of a sudden the focus was all on the constituent.
That's right. Absolutely. And, I went to a couple of meetings previously with some folks that was their first time to go to Capitol Hill, and people a little bit nervous, and rightfully so. But so we're hanging out in the front of the office, and one of the staffers, we introduced ourselves, and I said who I was and who I represented, and of course the local voting constituent was there, and one of the staffers said, "I know he's a lobbyist because he's got a suit on." It's like,
there you go.
Sorry, man, I got my lobby outfit on.
Is it wrong to be well dressed these days?
Like, I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. But anyway,
that's the Washington D.C. uniform.
Exactly.
That's funny.
I know we're talking about federal legislative flying.
Yeah.
But I know, Matt, you're also active locally. So I don't know if you do a similar thing in Connecticut, and how important is it to propel any legislative effort by making that connection with a voter?
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't really do anything to the depth that we do at the national level in Connecticut. But in terms of, making that connection with a local voter, I'll just give you an example from this last legislative fly-in. We met with a staffer from Congresswoman Hayes' office, and it was our first meeting of the day. And we were talking about the legislation that we were looking for support on or sponsorship on. And we started talking about, surety bonds in general. And we actually talked about a project in Connecticut. It actually was not in Congresswoman Hayes' district, but Connecticut's a small state. And it was a high profile project that the surety company had to get involved with to get it to the finish line. And that really made a connection with that staffer. So much so that a couple of weeks later, thankfully, we actually got the support of Congresswoman Hayes, and she signed on as a co-sponsor for the legislation. And I think a lot of that was, again, that personal connection where that staffer heard from actual constituents and actually heard about a real life example from their home state.
Right. Wow. That's great. I mean, what a great result.
Yeah.
So I know, because we all drink, eat, sleep, surety, that everybody else in the world knows about surety bonds, right? Like when you go and you talk, they're like, "Oh yeah, I know that surety bond." Yeah. So, I mean, how important is it to be in front of these folks to just educate them on the basic purpose and importance of the product?
Very important. And most of the time when you're meeting the staffers, they really don't know much about surety unless you've met with them in the past. So you really are the subject matter expert. And actually, that's what makes it easier as a first-time attendee. And you shouldn't feel afraid to go there or nervous because you are the subject matter expert, and they're going to rely they're going to rely on you for your expertise. But it's important, Mark, like you said, we were legislated into existence as an industry, and we could be legislated out. So the more people that we can educate about the benefits of surety bonds, not just protecting taxpayer dollars, but also protecting the small businesses via the payment bond. It's really important for us as an industry to continue to educate the policymakers.
Yeah, and I think each one of them kind of keys in on something different when you're in the meetings and you start doing the 101 of what our product is to explain it to them. And Matt hit the nail on the head. This year, especially, it's felt like when you started talking about small businesses and the protection that they got, that really was kind of the point that they became more engaged with us in the meetings that I was in to really understand it. And as we build, I think the big piece also is to build a relationship with these offices, because right now we've got asks, and we always have asks that we're asking, but they're not massive lifts that we're asking for at this current time. But someday we're going to have a bigger ask. And the more that they know us, they don't want us to be Johnny come lately, walking up for the first time, asking for a huge lift. If they get to know us year after year and, see our name over and over again, I think that it gives us that chance to, when we do have a bigger lift to ask for, it's going to be easier to get that lift when we've been there. We're not just showing up when at the time of need. And we really truly are trying to build this kind of grassroots relationship with the staffers and, at certain times the congresswoman or man or senator there so that we can get that really relationship built with them for when we do need them someday down the road too.
I think that's a very important point, Alan. We've become close friends with Pete Stauber, not just on legislative matters, but I've got to know Mr. Stauber from his hockey days. So when he sees me, he's like, "Hey, how the Bruins doing?" I know, it's like, "How the Bruins doing?" I'm like, "Nah, the Bruins doing
Not
very
good this
well." but so I've developed a relationship with him. But so if there's a big ask of Pete Stauber, he knows who we are, and I think that's such an important point.
And it's fun. To bring up Pete Stauber's office, what a different meeting that is, because Larry has the relationship there. The SFAA lobbyist, I unfortunately don't remember his name off the top of my head, was college roommates with one of the staffers for Mr. Stauber. And you walk in there and we're talking about Nicole Cody, who was from Minnesota that came in with us. Her brother's a police officer in St. Paul. And Mr. Stauber grew up through the police force. And so we talked about those things. It was really relationship building. It was that we actually didn't spend a lot of time on surety bonds because he's one of the few that already knows what that was. So again, it's building that relationship and making sure that, we're there for him too, and telling him what's going on in our state and all the different things that are happening there.
But just by way of example, why is a Representative Pete Stauber important to us? What is it about that office, for example? Why is it important to culture a relationship with him?
Well, Mr. Stauber's actually done a couple of good deeds for us. First of all, he's actually introducing a bill with change orders, which he's done for the past couple of Congresses. He also co-chairs a construction procurement caucus along with Hillary Schulten from Michigan. This is a caucus that's been around for a couple of Congresses now, and the importance of the caucus is to learn about construction procurement in the federal arena.
Excellent.
So if there's a constituent that has a question about construction-related matters, he knows that he can reach out, that office can reach out to the members of the Construction Procurement Coalition, which includes NASBP, SFAA, AGC, the general contractors, the subcontractors, the specialty trade contractors. So that's the big relationship that we have with Mr. Stauber, the constituent relationship on top of the legislative and caucus matters that he's championed on our behalf.
Obviously, that's just one important relationship, right?
Absolutely.
But I think that's a great example of the importance of building a relationship with somebody critical to our interest, right?
Absolutely. And we've developed certainly other relationships, whether it be on the Small Business Committee, the Transportation Committee with Chairman Sam Graves, the Small Business Committee with Ranking Member Nydia Velazquez. The list is pretty long.
I would think that the legislative fly-in is a really helpful way to keep us in front in front of mind for these offices. Is that true?
I would definitely agree with that, because sometimes we don't. Look, there's 435 members of the House. There's 100 members of the Senate. I'm one guy. All right. So
come on.
That doesn't sound like a problem, Larry.
It's hard for me to
You're a fast runner. You can get to a lot of offices.
But no, so if we get 32, 33 members, NASBP members, SFA members come to town on our behalf, make inroads to those offices, that's something that I'm not able to fulfill.
Right.
And that's so important, because those relationships perhaps I can capitalize on after the fly-in as well and go into those offices.
And you're talking about those numbers, Larry. So how did we do in 2025 at the fly-in? What were our numbers?
We had 131 total visits.
Wow, that's great.
With 136 attendees, I want to say. I think there were 7 or 8 members of Congress that showed up for those meetings that came in. One, of course, was Pete Stauber.
Yep.
Wow.
And those are the biggest numbers we've had to date. And I've been doing this longer than I want to say, but this is the biggest number that we've had to date.
And we've talked about some of the impact those visits had with,
with
signing
co-sponsorships,
signing on to.
Exactly.
So we don't want to stop there, right?
We are going to continue to build on the momentum. I'm going to let my gentleman take that call.
Yeah, we want to keep building on this. Matt and I had kind of our big push last year was to get the numbers that we got at the February 25 fly. We want to even get that bigger now. We're really imploring all the members that, this is our living. As you said at the beginning, we don't want to be legislated out. So this is a very important thing for the industry, for us as producers, to be there and support our industry. And so we really are pushing to have more and more members come. Not only is everything we've talked about amazing, and also the networking that you get at the fly-in is outstanding. The sureties send, pretty high up people at the different sureties in each of their organizations, and it's a great networking opportunity as well for us producers. Not that that's why we're there, but it's kind of a bonus. That's the icing on the cake there, that we can also get access to some pretty big member names at some of these different sureties, and then they've got the Washington Day programming that they do the day we fly in. That's awesome content. This year I forget the Mr. Graves staff member that ran the committee, and he was amazing to talk to. So there's a lot. I mean, the legislative part is insanely important. It's what makes our business run. But there's also other perks to being able to go into the fly-in that you get from that.
Like Alan said, there's a lot of value there, and we also recognize that time is valuable for everyone, and our NASBP members are asked to participate in a lot of different associations and events. But the way the legislative fly-in is structured, it really is a fly-in. I mean, you fly in on a Wednesday. You spend Thursday on the Hill, and you can either fly home Thursday night or early Friday. So it's not a full week endeavor. Very convenient to get in and out of DC. And there's direct flights from pretty much every major city in the United States. The lodging is reasonably priced, and the transportation from the airport, it's also very reasonable. And the location where we were last year, we were probably less than half a mile from the Capitol. I mean, you walked outside of the hotel, you could see the Capitol there. So they really do a good job. The NASBP staff and SFAA, they really do a good job of structuring the event to make it easy for people. And we respect that time is valuable for everyone. And it's a lot packed into 2 days.
And there's no registration fee.
Right, true.
Matt forgot the most important part. There's no registration fee. So it makes it even easier to be able to go.
Yeah.
So now, is this just for producers? Is this for senior people? Who should be coming to this?
I think anybody that is involved at the NASBP at any level should be going to this, whether they're a senior producer or they're new and getting involved with the NASBP. If somebody was newer involvement with NASBP, this is a great way to understand what all the staff of the NSPB really does. I mean, this is a big lift. This is Larry's, life at the office there. And this is a big push for everybody. And so it's really neat. I think it'd be a good way to learn more about the NSPP and then to become more involved in the NSPP. It's a great, kind of stepping stone for getting involved, whether it be in the government relations committee or another committee that you meet somebody with and kind of, get a relationship with as well.
Yeah. I know we have a group of younger producers, our 515 Leadership Circle.
Yeah.
And it seemed like they've been very engaged over the last several years. Is that right, Matt?
Yep, that's absolutely correct. And the other interesting thing with that 515 leadership group is if you look at the repeat visits. So they might have come in 2024 and they're back in 25 and they'll be back in 26. So not only are they going that first time, but they find it so valuable and they get so much out of it that they're willing to do it again. And that's really the key for longevity for this event. It's, like Alan said, any level, senior level down to a junior level, any NASBP member is more than welcome to attend. But, we can get the younger people in there and they stay engaged for their entire career and they're willing to come year after year. It's incredible.
So you said young people. What's really interesting is I've seen really young people come. So we've had members who have brought their sons and daughters
That's right.
to come to DC and really experience how the sausage is made, so to speak, right?
Yep.
And I imagine that's a wonderful experience for them and for the family.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we've got a great article that was written by one of this last year's attendees who brought her daughter along with her. We'll put a link to that here in the description as well if anyone wants to check it out. If you're thinking of bringing your kids to DC, there's a lot for them to do while they're there.
Well, I know we touched earlier on, I'll call it the intimidation factor. So can we walk through the mechanics of how does this come into being? Okay, let's say you register on the website for this. What happens after that? Larry?
So what we'll do is we certainly, once registration takes place, the first thing we'll do is, we've got a couple of things actually. We actually contract with an outside vending service.
Okay.
That'll set people's attendees' Hill appointments.
Oh.
So NASBP is not involved with scheduling. We oversee the process, certainly.
And they don't have, the attendee doesn't have to go through that pain and effort either, right?
Absolutely not. And it's the meetings are based on the zip code of the attendee, where they live or where they work. So that is totally seamless. They don't see that. And the other beauty part is there's a meeting app as well. So you'll see the attendee will see their meetings, all the documents that the NASBP SFA provide, the location of those meetings, whom they're meeting with. It really makes it easy for the attendee. So that's set up about a month prior. About 2 weeks before the meeting, before the fly-in, NASBP and SFA will host a sort of a virtual town hall. Well, we'll run through, we create a document of talking points that we'll want attendees to address. There usually be about 3 to 4 talking points that we'll want attendees to hit on. The importance of the product, whether or not we have legislation we want them to speak to the legislation, and other important factors, and some of the do's and don'ts and what to do when you go to Capitol Hill. I know it can be a little bit intimidating. We provide maps, so hopefully I haven't lost anyone yet.
Yeah. It's nice.
So we don't have to leave breadcrumbs behind or anything like that.
Nice.
So, but and I understand it can be a little bit intimidating, but we try and make this as easy as possible through the Advocacy Associates app and through NASBP planning ahead of time, walking attendees through the talking points.
So you're saying they know where to go, they know what to say, and they may be doing it with other attendees, so they feel like they're not doing it alone, right?
Exactly. And for those who are by themselves, who've never done this before, we certainly, NASBP will identify those attendees. And if they feel comfortable, they can certainly go on their own, or we're certainly willing as staff to accompany them, perhaps for their first meeting or two, so they sort of get their feet wet and understand sort of the process and what's in front of them.
All right. So, Alan, as a veteran person doing this, what do you wish you would have known before you went to your first legislative fly-in?
And I think we all know it. It's truly believing how easy it is. I wish I believed what we heard of how easy it is, that you show up, you look at your app, on Wednesday afternoon, they do a very quick walkthrough of what, the process looks like. Most states, I believe, have more than one person that the person that you're going with. I don't think I believed how easy it was going to be once I got there. And so it truly, Larry and the team, you guys take all the hard work out of it for us as attendees.
That's great.
We show up at the hotel. We've got our app. We have our schedule. I believe even the app has maps in it of where we're going to. I'm not the smartest man in the world. If I can figure it out, anybody can figure it out. And that's, I was very daunting the first time you go there. I'm a simple guy from Minnesota. You show up to DC, you're intimidated by the big buildings and all these hallways and all these doors, and it always works out. And even if you're late, the offices don't care if you show up. They understand. They've seen this before. I've shown up 15 minutes late to a meeting, and it was no big deal. They just meet with you. They, just like us at our offices, they got plenty of stuff to do if you're a little bit late. They're not sitting there twiddling their thumbs waiting for you. They'll work on whatever they're working on until you get there and kind of keep moving. So, and how welcoming whether the staffer or in the couple times I've had the luxury of meeting with either the congressperson or the senator, how welcoming they are and how interested they are on why you're there, and excited to see a fellow Minnesotan or whatever state you're from as their constituent. They love to talk about whatever it is in that state, whether it be Congressman Stauber in hockey or whatever it may be. They want to pick on something little goofy story here. We walked in an office and the staffer, they'd been working on something that was in my little town of 10,000 people. And he asked me about our water treatment plant in my little town of 10,000 people, because even though he wasn't from Minnesota, he wanted to hear about somebody of a project they've been working on that actually was utilizing what they had been spending the last
that's great.
handful of year and a half, I think, working on this water treatment plant to get better water.
So
it was really neat to have that connection with that staffer in that meeting. So
all politics is local. Really, it always comes back to that.
Right.
Really and I guess to wrap that up, they want to hear what we have to say. So I think that's the biggest thing I didn't know going into it, Mark, was that they're looking forward to hearing from us. They're not sitting there going, "Oh, I wish I didn't have to deal with this meeting." They're looking forward to the conversations that they're going to have with us.
Nice.
And then I was going to just to kind of dovetail on that too. The nice thing is if you go year after year, you start to develop a relationship with the staffer or the member. And so they'll look forward to you coming in, the following year, and you kind of develop that rapport, and, it really makes things a lot easier and better.
So now, did you say a lot of times you're meeting with a staffer? Do you ever meet with a member?
I've been fortunate, not this past legislative fly-in, but in 2023 and in 24, I met with a member, which
what was that like?
I thought it was great, and like honestly, I'm not one to really get intimidated. They're normal people like us, and both times in 23 and 24, the member was asking a lot of very thoughtful questions about surety, and they, just like their staffers, are not very well versed in it as well. And so they were really leaning on us to help them out, help them understand it. Nice. They were, asking for examples of surety bonds in their, how they've been employed, in their district, in their state, and the value there. So it was great. It was no issues at all. And again, you just have to remember that they're normal people like us. Even though they have a position of political power, they're still normal people, and they're very interested in what's going on locally as well.
Right. And they're asking questions that the answers to. Correct. Because you're the subject matter expert.
Yeah. And the other thing too, when you go to these meetings, the staffers ask you questions, they're not going to throw you curveballs to try to trick you. Like, that's not what they're looking to do. If they're asking you questions, it's because they want to learn more about it so they can present it. If we're asking a staffer, hey, our ask is to get a co-sponsor here. Well, they need to go back to the congresswoman or the congressman and explain the bill. So when they're asking you questions, it's not to trip you up and to kind of, make you look foolish. It's just so that they can understand it a little bit better. And again, you will be the subject matter expert when you're there, and they'll really rely on you a lot to explain surety to them.
So Larry, if by chance there is a question, maybe they're asking for some kind of data or something like that from a visitor to their office, what should the visitor do if the visitor doesn't have a response?
Well, we always caution attendees that, if they don't know the answer to a particular question, they don't feel comfortable, just bring it back to staff.
Okay.
And we'll follow up with that office. And that's the best way to respond. And that's always something that we say before, usually during our prep call and during our town hall meeting. And one of the points we always make is, if you don't understand the question, don't worry, don't try and answer it. Bring it back to NASBP staff, SFA staff. We'll field the question and respond back to the office.
Okay.
Matt, I love what you said about coming back and building those relationships if you've been before. So everyone we've seen there before, we want to see you back, building those relationships at the next fly-in. If you haven't been there yet, what's your advice, Alan, would you give to someone who hasn't come to the fly-in yet? Why should they be there?
Again, it's the bedrock of our industry and what we're doing. And they, to show up and learn, how the sausage is made, as Mark has said before, it's interesting. It's, it's a fun time. And it's just, we need to build these relationships with all the different numbers that Larry threw out there. We need more people to build those relationships. 131 is amazing, but that's, if we can get that to 150, 175, that's just even more, tools we have in our toolbox when we need that heavy lift someday. And it's just being prepared for someday if we do have something big to ask, to make sure that we have the resources there available to us to go out and be able to reach out to friends that we have on the Hill.
I feel like Alan's thrown down the gauntlet and the industry needs to respond. Sure. We're looking for 150 or more at the fly-in.
Well, I'm curious. So you've done the fly-in. In terms of your relationship with that office, does it stop there? I mean, apart from even going on a fly-in, are there things that you should do after your visit?
Well, I think, it's an important, I always follow up with emails with the person that I met with. They always take our business cards and whatever. And I personally haven't had somebody reach back out to me, but I have heard in talks of people at the fly-in that there's been many of the NASBP members that have gone that have gotten emails or phone calls from whoever they met with for a question that came up throughout the year. I don't know, Matt, if you've had that experience, but I know other people have.
Yeah, I always will follow up with a thank you email, thanking them for their time. And, their time, just like ours, is valuable. They're being approached by, countless numbers of people, pushing different pieces of legislation. In the situation where we were fortunate enough to get Congresswoman Hayes to sign on as a co-sponsor, I sent her staffer a very nice thank you note and just said, listen, if there's anything that you want to know more about this piece of legislation, or if you want to meet, or if Congresswoman Hayes wants to meet, more than happy to grab a cup of coffee and answer any questions you have. And so it always is good just to follow up and offer your counsel if they do have questions on it.
One thing I would say before we end, all members of Congress host coffee events in their home districts. It's always an opportunity when they're home on recess. They hold town hall meetings. If you ever get a follow-up from an office like that, perhaps think about attending a town hall for that member of Congress.
Great point.
Yeah.
So I'm, hope that we'll have more people at the fly-ins. We had a great
150.
turnout.
I heard it.
Great
Yeah,
turnout.
150.
But in case somebody can't make it, but they're coming to Washington, is there anything they can do, Larry?
They can always, they can come to me at any time. If they're coming to, if they're not coming to a flying event, but they're coming to DC for vacation, school event, reach out to me. We coined this term every day is advocacy at NASBP years ago. So if you're coming to DC on vacation, you're coming to see the cherry blossoms, whatever it is, send me a note. I'm happy to make appointments for you.
Thank you guys so much for being on with us today.
Yeah.
I will see you at the fly-in along with 150 other Surety professionals.
Awesome.
Thanks, Kat.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Let's Get Surety, brought to you by the National Association of Surety Bond Producers. For more information about the NASBP and its members, visit nasbp.org.
Before we go, we just want to say thank you again to Old Republic Surety for their generous support in sponsoring this episode of Let's Get Surety. For more information on Old Republic Surety, visit www.orsurety.com.